What's up, guys? We are back again. Not reviewing any slimes this time, but there's one slime on my head. And we're here to review one of the most influential games and RPGs of all time that spawned one of the coolest and greatest video game series of all time, and didn't really spin off into Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy probably wouldn't have existed without the popularity of this game. So every time you fucking Final Fantasy people, you know, want to claim that you're the biggest and the best RPG franchise, just realize your roots. And I know that the RPG genre came from like the Ultima games and whatnot, and originally from stuff like Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. But this is what the game that kind of cemented the modern structure of turn-based RPGs is Dragon Quest 1, also known as Dragon Warrior 1 here in the West, which is how I first came to know about it, was my boxed copy right here. And the reason this one is up here instead of any other version specifically is because this is the version that I played and that we will be reviewing. Now, I have beat the NES Dragon Warrior version here. It's a lot harder and a lot more tedious and whatnot. There's a great video breakdown that's many years old but still perfectly kind of encapsulates what the difference between this and this is. And the answer is it's like the Ego Raptor joke. Answer 4 hours or whatever, which is literally the answer. It's like there's less grinding. They've cut down. They've cut the fat, as the HVGN likes to say in his video there, his Game Quickie about the comparison video. It's a great video. You should go check that out. Also, I'm not going to be going in super in depth on the history of the games. There's a really interesting breakdown by Clan of the Grey Wolf. You should go check that out for the history of these and other Dragon Quest games and the history of RPGs in general. And he has a nice little review of Dragon Quest 8 as well. Anyway, so yeah, basically this Dragon Warrior, this NES version, kind of started everything, you know, in terms of the modern RPG structure. But initially it was this other game, Dragon Quest, on the Famicom there, which is what the series was always known as, and is now known as in America. We've cut out the trademarked Dragon... The Dragon Warrior wasn't trademarked, but Dragon Quest here was trademarked as a sort of a D&D thing. D&D-like game. It's something very similar to that, that they had trademarked that Dragon Quest already. So here in America, it wasn't known as Dragon Quest until Dragon Quest 8. And we had the Dragon Warrior moniker for the first 3 games, or the first 4 games, and then Dragon Warrior 7 on the PS1, and also the Dragon Warrior Monsters games, those 2 games. As far as I know, I believe that's all of the Dragon Warrior games that they had as the Dragon Warrior series, which are all just Dragon Quest games. They're the same exact games, it's just the naming difference. So we had it as Dragon Warrior here, and I have this nice little copy. This is what the game looks like. This is actually the copy of the game that I played on my Game Boy player, which you can't see, but it's down here. Here, I can maybe bring it up, actually. Let's, here's my GameCube, my good old Game Boy player there. So, yeah. Played it on this thing here. But you're like, John, the GameCube controller has that dinky little D-pad. What the fuck? That probably sucked, right? Well, I actually have a pretty cool thing that I also heard about by HVGN. It's the Hori GameCube controller that was meant for the Game Boy player there. It's got a nice Super Nintendo-esque D-pad. good A and B button there. So this is actually a really convenient way to play this game. And actually, these do the same thing as they do on the Game Boy Advance, which makes sense. I mean, that's kind of what it is a Game Boy Advance. But I just thought that was interesting. And actually, on the Game Boy Advance screen, here, let's put this in just so I can kind of show just how I mostly played it back in the day. Was a Game Boy Advance here. Actually, it's very, you gotta blow in the game, you know. Alright. That's where we've gotten with Game Boy games. I always had to blow in my Game Boy games, though. A lot of times people would play it like this, but the way I always played it was like this. And that makes sense because the screen is so small. Okay, it glitched up. You should get the idea. The screen is so small that it actually makes it look pretty decent. And a lot of people hated that, and they were like, oh, it doesn't look right or whatever. Yeah, okay. But when you blow it up onto your big TV and then it's already like kind of letterboxed in, which was, I mean, I guess the first mistake there. Because I played this game on an emulator where the thing is like almost full screen. And it looks fine there. But the way they do it on the Game Boy player, it just, when they stretch it, it kind of looks a little ridiculous. And I'm not super into that. So yeah, I just kept it on the regular, like, kind of letterbox version. It just looks bigger anyway on your TV. And so that's what I like, is just the bigger version of that. And I was thinking about playing it on the Super Game Boy, but I'm like, I have a Game Boy player. Why would I do that, you know? And I wanted a chance to use out my cool Hori controller there that I spent a bunch of money on. So yeah. So anyway, what's cool is my experience with this game back in the day was, this is why I have this here, is because back in the day I got this, and specifically this box, which is actually still in pretty decent shape for how old it is, you know, like nearly 20 years or whatever. But yeah, I got this as a present with Pokemon Red for one of my birthdays, probably like my 8th or 9th birthday, and it was really cool. It was one of the coolest gifts I'd ever gotten, and so that was pretty amazing. And then later on I got Pokemon Gold. But what's relevant about that is when I got this, I only had Pokemon Red, so I wanted to get another game for it. So we went to Video Games Etc., which is funny because you can still see the little $20 sticker on there, up in the corner here. So I left my little original price sticker on there, which I'm glad I did, because it helps me remember, you know, think back to the good old days. But anyway, we went in there and I took a look at that. And I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool. What's this Dragon Warrior thing? You know, this looks kind of neato. And so I was asking the guy, like, what kind of game is it? He's trying to describe it, and you know, he's like, it's like an RPG, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. And he's like, we were talking about it, and I'm like, oh, this sounds a lot like Pokemon or whatever. And he's just like, yeah, it's kind of like that. And so, you know, he's like, oh, this fucking stupid kid doesn't even know what an RPG is outside of goddamn Pokemon or whatever. But so yeah, so I have Pokemon to thank for getting me into Dragon Quest, really. And I played the little intro, which wasn't really something that I played. I just kind of went through the opening cutscene or whatever, and started talking to the king, and then like walked around that room for a minute. And my mom's like, we gotta go. Like, do you want this or not? And I'm like, yeah, let's get this. And so I got it, and I remember playing it a bit, and yeah. And then I just kind of fell in love with it from there. I mean, it was slow and a gradual process because it wasn't a game that I really knew what to do in a whole lot. So I kind of had to figure it out over time. But it was one of the early RPGs that I kind of got into. I feel like I didn't beat it until like way later on or something, but I don't think that's right. I think I actually did end up beating it before like 2005 or whatever, when I ended up getting Dragon Quest 8. Because at the time, another Eager Raptor there. I had played, I remember Dragon Quest 2 and 3, I believe, was the other ones that, Dragon Warrior, Dragon Warrior, the Game Boy versions I had played of these games, which the Game Boy versions are actually based off this Super Nintendo re-release, or remake, sort of Dragon Quest 1 and 2 and 3 there. And so they have Super Famicom cartridges of these games that are remakes with better graphics and improved gameplay and like less grinding and all the stuff that you see in the Game Boy version. The only thing about the Game Boy version is it's crunched down a bit, the screen size. Like the screen size on the NES version is bigger, but it's definitely a vast improvement over the NES version. Like I said, the NES version is incredibly tedious, and just grinding. I mean, this version has enough grinding as is, but the grinding you have to do in the NES version is a little bit much, because it's just leveling up is such a slow process, and you actually get less MP and stuff by leveling up, and they've just made it a much harder game, which, at the time was how games went. And even the Japanese version is actually even inferior to the NES version, in the sense that the sprites don't move. They're always just statically looking forward instead of turning and stuff. Something I noticed that's cool about the Game Boy version, I don't know if they do this on the NES or not, I don't remember, but when you equip a shield or a sword, or both, you can see that on your character sprite, and if you don't have them equipped, they're not on your character sprite. I'm going to take this off because it's starting to get itchy on my head there. We'll put this somewhere that we can see it, though, because there's got to be one slime in the video, because that makes sense. Oh, can't really see it there. Here, let's put it over here or something. Okay. So, yeah. Basically, I just thought that was kind of cool. What else did I have as a note here? I made myself a few little notes. Oh, I think it's cool how Lodo's armor heals you when you walk. And you also use it to like walk over hazardous spaces without getting hurt. So I think that's pretty cool. And then I beat the game in 6.5 hours. A straight 6.5 hours. I sat here for 6.5 hours, essentially, with bathroom breaks and whatnot. Light snacking, I guess. I didn't really have lunch, but I sat here from I made breakfast. Then I started at like 9 o'clock, and I got done at like 3:30 or whatever. So, yeah, it's a comfortable little game that the NES version is so much more tedious that it probably takes at least another, 10 hours maybe of grinding and stuff, just because the game is so much harder. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I do remember spending a summer, maybe not a summer, but I think it was during the summer, like when I first got into the NES, beating that version, because it was one of my early NES games, and I really loved Dragon Quest, but I would put on movies and stuff and play it on the side, and I just remember it being so tedious, and it kind of kills most of the fun of the game, the original version there, and maybe I'm just spoiled because this is the version that I grew up on, but a lot of people seem to agree that the Game Boy and all subsequent re-releases are the better versions, and that the original version is kind of a trashy version of the game. The only people who I've heard kind of stand up for it are Johnny Millennium and stuff. Okay, now the biggest criticism I actually had, that's all whatever. If it was more tedious and stuff, that's fine. It's not just more tedious in the grinding, it's more tedious in the gameplay, because every door and every stairs you have to go down, you have to go into your menu and use a function in the menu to do those actions. Everything on the Game Boy version is all simplified down to hitting the A button, and that's it. You hit the A button to open a door, you hit the A... You don't even hit the A button to go downstairs. You go over the stairs and go downstairs like any other fucking game, like a Zelda game or something. That's how that works, and that makes sense, and that's good. We didn't have to go into a menu to press a button to go downstairs and stuff. And all of the NES versions, as far as I know, or at least the first few, are kind of like that. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's just the first one, but I know at least the first one has that. Now, and I've also played the iOS version. I played it on my iPad, and I actually beat it fully on my iPhone. I think maybe even this iPhone. Maybe back. Well, no, it's probably my last one. Back in like 2016 or something, I would like play it while Well, so while I was working, I would like I would do small amounts of grinding here and there. I don't remember how I pulled that off, but I managed that somehow. So, yeah, so that was a thing. So it's a convenient, nice, portable experience. I think this game is best experienced portably. And I've already had that experience with the game, so that's why I just kind of sat down to do it today, because I kind of had to do that. But I used to take this game around with me everywhere. My dad would drag me all over the fucking place for business stuff, or just going to get cars, or racing stuff. I would fucking play this game all of the time. My Game Boy Advance back in the day, not specifically the SP, but yeah, my SP especially, and not this one, because I don't have that. The one that I have is the broken one that you might have seen in the room tour videos. That was mine back in the day. But this thing was like my life back then, because Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, Golden Sun, and like Super Mario World and stuff like on this thing were the fucking best, and I played the shit out of all of those games. And games like this, Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 and 3, the Pokemon games, obviously, Red and Blue and Gold and Silver. I didn't play Silver, but Red and Blue I did play, and Yellow, and then Gold I also played a ton of. I didn't play Crystal either, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't even know. I think I have a copy of Crystal, but I don't think I have a copy of Silver, now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe I do have a copy of Silver. I don't remember. I have Heart Gold and Soul Silver, so that's pretty cool. I don't think I have a copy of Silver. I think I have Crystal somewhere, though. Anyway, doesn't matter. Didn't have those back in the day. What's cool about... So what I was trying to say is I would just play this game portably all of the time. I actually remember the moment that I beat this game. It was late into one night. We'd come back from racing or whatever, and so the adults were off doing something. I was in my dad's truck just waiting for them to come back. They were off at a bar or something. You know, didn't want to go in there. Who cares? I want to play my Game Boy, right? That's the idea. So I stayed behind. I was like, you know, thinking that I was going to go to sleep or something, but I ended up just playing the game instead, or maybe that was my excuse. It was that so I could play the game. And I remember just sitting there. I just have this image of that in my head, sitting there fighting the final boss and finally defeating the final boss after all of this time. I was just thinking about this earlier. I would sit there a ton of different times. I was kind of, yeah, I had a lot of times where I just had like weekend days by myself or whatever, and I would, because my parents were busy, and my mom was, and my dad was, and so if I was at my dad's place, I would just, my thought process was, when I was there at my dad's place, I would just sit there, I would watch movies. Specifically, I watched a lot of Indiana Jones and Star Wars, I remember, whilst grinding on Dragon Quest here. And whenever I wasn't playing with my Legos or whatever, I'd be fucking grinding on Dragon Quest 1 or 2 and just trying to figure out where to kind of go next in those games. So, I played them a lot when my fucking friend Nick used to sit and play a bunch of games, you know, one-player games, like on his PlayStation and shit, and I was just there to watch, so half the time I would just be grinding in Dragon Quest. I also remember that. Or like when we'd be watching a show like that I wasn't that interested in, some fucking stupid anime or something. Not like anime, but like, you know, whatever was on Cartoon Network back in the day, or Toonami, or Magoozy, or whatever the fuck. Some of those stupid shows that like I wasn't that in, I was like half interested in. I would just sit here and grind with Pokemon or whatever. So, yeah, I liked a lot of those shows too. That's a whole different topic. Fucking yeah, that was my shit back in the day. I would grind while watching TV. That was a big part of my childhood. So yeah, Dragon Warrior. It's been with me all this time. Now I call it Dragon Quest, but I gotta call it Dragon Warrior sometimes this video because that's the version that I had back then. So the significance of Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 later on, mostly 1 though, because I just remember a lot of playing 1. I did like 2. 2 is a really great game. Some would say better than the first game. But the first game will always hold a more special place in my heart because it was the first one. And the first one that I played. And I like the simplicity of the first game. I think that the open world concept and this non-linear idea of you can kind of go anywhere. You're going to get your ass kicked if you go anywhere, but you can go anywhere and do anything as long as you have the means to do that. The only thing that's kind of keeping you locked out of anything, funnily enough, is keys, which you can't really get until you get to this one specific town later on where you can buy keys, and then you can access keys pretty much everywhere. But that's what's locking you out of most of the parts of the game, is getting to that one town to get keys. But aside from that, and you like buying torches and stuff to get through the dark caves, I mean, you don't even technically need to do that. You can just bounce your way around through the dark caves without a light. It's very possible. One of the first caves that you go through to get to that town that I was talking about with the keys is a long cave where you basically just have to go down, and then you go over a little bit, and then you go around, and there's a staircase there, and then you're out of the tunnel. I think that's the Marsh Cave or something. So you go through there, and that's it. And you can definitely do that without the light of the torch or the radiant spell, which you don't get until like level 9. And I was waiting for that spell for a while I was playing today. So yeah, and I know that the game, well, hold on, I'll get to that in a second. So I like that the game is sort of open and almost non-linear in a sense. If you really are good enough at the game, you can make your way around non-linearly and pick up. Basically, the whole point of the game is to find the Sunstone, the Rain Staff. And you gotta find a harp to get, I think, the Rain Staff. To make this rainbow drop. You gotta find the Seal of Loto as well, so the guy will let you make the rainbow drop. And then the rainbow drop makes a bridge, so you can get to the Draco Lord's castle, which is like immediately visually apparent where the end of the game is from the start. So I always thought that was kind of cool, because then you can see the first place from the end, and then it's like a full circle kind of thing. It's cool. Anyway, so yeah, you got to make that rainbow drop to make the bridge to get to the Draco Lord's castle, and you can do this fairly quickly. The level cap in this game is like level 30, and it's kind of like Super Mario RPG actually, which is another great game that borrows this concept of a sort of short RPG experience with a lot of depth, but the main experience can still take as long as you want it to take, in a sense. Mostly because of grinding and whatnot. But that's what's really cool about the game, is it's set up in such a non-linear way to where you can kind of, if you're good enough at it, you can... Sort of like Dark Souls, actually, which is funny. You don't have to level up in Dark Souls, but you can do that to make the game a lot easier, but you can also do it by not leveling up and being just a real noob, and you can just go in shield only or whatever. It's just like that. You could do that. You don't even have to get equipment in this game if you don't want to. You could go hardcore and just go through it. I know you could probably do that in most RPGs, but, you know, it's such a fresh concept for the original RPG to do this, you know? This concept of like an open sort of world, and it is really the original Dark Souls game, if you want to think about it like that, in a turn-based form. But yeah, it's so neat, because so getting these items is all dependent on just really getting through these caves, or whether or not you have keys in some certain cases in order to be able to open the way to these different dungeons to get these items or whatever. Such as the one in the town, Garyhan or whatever, where it's like the town in the north where his tomb is there, and you need a key to get in there, a few keys to get in there, but other than that, you can pretty much go in there pretty early as soon as you can get to that one town. So basically your first main objective is to level up enough to be able to get through that marsh cave to get to that town, so you can get those keys. And a lot of it is leveling up to get equipment and whatnot, which you don't technically need if you're good enough at the game, but your first time through, you're probably going to get as much equipment as possible. This time, I kind of actually did sort of a harder version of the run, or maybe it was easier this way. I don't know. I didn't really buy the lower tier equipment. I kind of just blew that off in order to save money for the higher tier equipment. Like, let's see. So I skipped initially all of the weapons until... No, actually, okay, so I did get the copper sword eventually. But I skipped all weapons until then. I didn't get like a club or a stick or any of that beforehand. I just went right for the copper sword. But before that, I actually bought armor and a shield, which is why I didn't have any money. So it took me a good 3 or so levels, which leveling up in this game takes far less time. Like I was saying, go watch the HVGN video. You'll see it takes significantly less time than the NES version there. And I was only level 16 when I beat the whole game, so I was level 18 because I had to go through the cave, or through Draco Lord's castle again to because I ended up dying on. I didn't heal more on when I got to his second form or whatever, the dragon form. So spoilers for Dragon Quest 1. I guess. Who cares, right? You probably should have played it by now. But anyway, if you haven't played it, I do recommend playing the Game Boy version or the iOS version. The iOS version I like. It's a prettier version, I suppose. It's higher resolution and whatnot. I'm always very partial to the Game Boy and its sprites, though, of the characters of Dragon Quest 1. Oh, I should have brought the little... Oh, fuck. Here, I gotta go grab it. It's just too perfect. I don't know why I didn't grab this earlier. I have this little figurine of the character from Dragon Quest 1. They're the main hero, Loto, or not Loto, but he's not even his descendant. Yeah, he is his descendant in this game. Yeah. Loto's descendant, whatever you want to name him, and then the princess there from Dragon Quest 1, so that's pretty good. We'll put that there next to the Draco Lord. He's so tiny in comparison. Anyway, so yeah, what was I saying? I just prefer the sprites and the graphical style of the NES. I also like the shorter dialogue. I know a lot of people say that's kind of a pain. I also like the dialogue speed option, to where I don't like how it's like 1 is the fastest, though. That's kind of odd. Like, you think 8 would be the fastest. Like, you're going faster with the higher numbers, but whatever. Like, so I like the shortened dialogue, and this is my favorite of the NES, of the Dragon Quest Warrior dialogues, because I don't really like that, like, Shakespearean kind of dialogue that they have. I mean, they do a little bit of that in here, but, like, it's very much more understandable. It just seems really pretentious when they do it in the other games, and I know that's how it always was, but this is just the way I prefer it. It's a lot simpler, and the dialogue is more effective. I feel like that way. There's this couple in the first castle, where if you, and this is totally optional. There's a lot of people like this. There's a lot of like little couples and love things everywhere, which is interesting. I feel like in every town there's like at least one couple or something love related going on, which is I don't know what that means or why, you know, I guess it shows the theme that the world is already under the rule of this Dragon Lord, but they're still, people are still loving and they're still doing this. But anyway, this couple in the original castle there are, they're like, they're scared about how the world's probably going to end, and that means that their love is going to end or whatever, and that's really what they're concerned about. I don't know, just the way they said it in the dialogue there, I was like, oh, this is really sweet. This is kind of, this is you know, this is characters. Like, these are characters here. These are just some NPCs, but this is impactful. This is working, you know? Like, there's not a lot like that. What I like about the NPCs, outside of the ones that are the couples or whatever, most of those NPCs either have some dialogue about how the world is kind of been destroyed and like different things and like, or it's about monsters and the game mechanics and like where to find certain artifacts and whatnot, like the Sunstone or the Rain Staff, or specifically the Loto gear, which I remember the last town there, the last town that's being guarded by the golem there. There's a lot of people there that tell you about a town that's been destroyed where there was like a shopkeeper who had Loto's armor, and so you're likely to have passed in there on the way there, but not have been able to defeat the enemy there, which is really dumb because I spent the whole like second half of the game, I even went into the Draco Lord's castle and went and got Loto's sword before it came out and went and go and fight that guy, meaning that, well, okay, so the knight, there's a Mad Knight enemy there, I think is what it's called. And this is an enemy that you can just, you know, he's kind of like a boss there, almost. And this is an enemy you can just literally fight inside of Draco Lord's castle. So I actually defeated a few of them before coming out, and then going over there, and I'm like, wait, this is just the Mad Knight enemy. I killed him in 2 hits! He killed me drastically, like 1 or 2 levels before, or maybe it was like 3 or 4 levels before. But by the time I had like overhyped him in my head, I came back and I killed him in 2 hits. And I'm just like, what? Seriously? I've been hyping myself about this the whole time, you know, like, I just thought it was really funny. I was like freaking out about it. I'm just like, oh, I could have done this so much earlier, but like, I went into the hardest area in the entire game, the Draco Lord's castle, just to get the sword to come back and fight an enemy that it already killed like 4 of to get Loto's armor. I just think that's really funny. In that destroyed town. And I like how there is a destroyed town, and it kind of has this like ominous and like sad music. And it kind of reminds me of like later Dragon Quest games, or like the Trodaine Castle or something to that effect, but done on a more simplistic level. It's like, wow, like, shit, look at this, it's actually destroyed, and that's kind of cool and impactful and emotional, whatever. You know, it's not like the greatest, craziest storyline ever. Oh my god, it blew my mind. These characters are unreal or whatever. I mean, it is the essence of an RPG game. It's the beginning of all of that. It's the foundation and the formation of these tropes. Attack, defend, item, flee. That's this. Dragon Quest started that. That menu, Pokemon menu, every other fucking RPG that has those simple things as the basis. All of the Final Fantasy games, you know, fucking Final Fantasy 7, all the ones you guys love, 6, all of that. Earthbound. Every single fucking RPG uses this sort of menu just like that. Those 4 options, at least. And holy shit, they all started here, you know? And iconic is not a word that that I kind of use lightly, but this is certainly iconic, like, and epic. That's another word I don't try to use a lot, but epic. It is epic. But iconic is certainly this, because fucking the slime is one of the most recognizable fucking icons of an enemy ever. It's so simplistic and yet so cool and awesome, and they use it to such a great effect here. They have the slime, they have the red slime, they have the metal slime. They call them metalies in this version of the game, but they have that. They don't have king slimes yet. But, you know, so yeah, it's just really cool. They don't even have like night slimes. All that comes in the later games. But yeah, it's just really cool. The slime is so iconic as an enemy. You have all of the basic staple Dragon Quest, you know, the dragons. You have like both versions of that, like the one on all fours that's guarding the princess, and so like a regular enemy later. There's that one. There's a blue version in Draco Lord's castle, and only on his floor there's a red version also, which is pretty cool. And then they have, of course, the iconic like standing dragon with his head tilted like that, which is Draco Lord's second form. Also, him being a vampire and then like morphing himself into a dragon. I don't know if he is a vampire, but he looks a lot like a vampire. Morphing himself into a dragon was something that I played with in one of my like early books or whatever. I just thought that was a cool concept, and it's also based off of you know, Dracula, or you know, him turning into a dragon. And they also had that in one of the Castlevania games where he turns into a dragon. So anyway, yeah. But it's certainly iconic. And all of the sort of tropes and staples, items and equipment, swords, shields, armor. You know, later in Dragon Quest II, they'd have helmets and whatnot. Did they have helmets in Dragon Quest II? I don't know. They have it by Dragon Quest III anyway. I don't remember Dragon Quest II if they had that or not. I wonder if that was still just this. But it's also interesting that they started you on... You're just one character the entire game. And I mean, that's really kind of still unique for an RPG. You don't really get that a lot. You always have a party in RPGs, and that's what Dragon Quest II innovated, was that sort of system. But we'll get there when we get there. So, we'll get there when we get there. That's a movie reference. Anyway, so... Yeah, and what's cool about this version is that it comes with both games, so that's neat, and I like that. And that's actually pretty impressive that they fit both of those onto one Game Boy cartridge. I mean, I know the original game, it probably doesn't take that much, but Dragon Quest II is a fairly long game, and the fact that they fit those both onto a cartridge is pretty cool. I guess it's not like super long, and some of the assets are shared and whatnot. I don't know. Anyway. That's just cool. They had fit Dragon Warrior 3 all onto its own cartridge, so, you know, I'm just saying. I'm glad they didn't do Dragon Warrior 4 until, like, way later on. I didn't even know if that would have been possible. Well, I'm sure it would have been possible on the Game Boy there, because they did do a version on the NES, so, I mean, you know, they probably would have been able to do it, but... I'm kind of glad that they waited till the DS. That was a much better idea. Would have liked to have seen maybe like a Game Boy Advance version would have been pretty cool, but, you know, whatever. DS version was good, and I like that. There wasn't really any Dragon Warrior or any of that on the Game Boy Advance, which was interesting. So, yeah, but not relevant. This game has a lot of those early staples. And I know what I was going to say earlier. Let's get into this now, I guess. I know a lot of the game is grinding and whatnot, but it's sort of this this concept that... they say this in the Clan and the Grey Wolf video too, but like, hard work is rewarded with your leveling up and whatnot. And you don't, like I said, you don't even necessarily have to level up. The only thing that leveling up gets you is better stats and more spells and whatnot, which, yeah, is kind of important. But I've seen people do this at like really low levels and whatnot, so it's a lot of freedom in the game, and I definitely appreciate that. Okay, so what I was trying to say about the NPC dialogue is that they give you hints to a lot of the crafty secrets of the game, and I think that's really cool, is they don't outright tell you some of the stuff they outright tell you, but a lot of it they leave secretive so you can kind of figure it out on yourself, but they give you little hints, and I love that it's kind of I don't know what to really compare that to. I guess some Zelda games kind of do that with their NPCs, like A Link to the Past or something, or Link's Awakening. that kind of thing, where they kind of give you little hints at like secrets in the game and this and that. I just think that's really cool. That way there's some mystery to the game, and you kind of get to figure it out, and crawling through the dungeons and whatnot would have been pretty cool back in the day without maps. It'd be like, adventurous and whatnot. And I pretty much always had maps to go off of, but I used to sometimes just kind of skulk around, but I get lost really easily, and I still get kind of lost nowadays. But dungeons aren't anything like super complicated, but they're like complicated enough, and especially if you're like lower level and you shouldn't be in there, like that's the beauty of the game though, is like you can still do that. You can still go in there and maybe get a super powerful item. There's a few optional dungeons too. There's like one that's kind of to the left of the, well, there's two of them that are actually kind of to the west of the starting castle there. One that's has no real items or whatever to pick up, but it's like Loto's tomb or whatever, and so you can go in there and it like tells you something about Loto, and maybe gives you a clue or something, if I remember correctly. That's like a beginner dungeon that you can kind of do. But then there's one to the west of there that you have to like go around these mountains, and the only thing that's in there, it's totally optional, because the only thing that's in there is like a bunch of treasure, and then there's like an iron shield in there which you can buy, but like there's only 3 shields in the entire game. There's a the like leather shield, the iron shield, and the silver shield, which is in the very last town, and it's the most expensive item in the game at 14,800 gold, which is something you definitely should grind for. Or I don't know if it's worth grinding for, but it's a big improvement over the iron shield there. I don't think that the flame sword is really worth grinding for, but I do think that if you're gonna go for something expensive, the shield is a good option. And while I was grinding for the shield, I had a very defeating moment where I had all of my gold, and I'm like, oh, I'm so good, I'm just gonna have all of my 12,000 gold. I just need 2,000 more to get to this fucking shield or whatever. I'll just go outside and whatever, and there's literally a bank in that town, so I'm a dumbass. I fucking die and go down to 6,000 gold, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm not getting the shield. And then slowly, over the time, I start to accumulate gold again, and I'm like, I have enough for the shield, and so I just went and bought it anyway. But yeah, that was really defeating there, but so yeah, there's an optional dungeon though to the west, where you can get this thing called the War Ring, and I think that just ups your attack or something. There's also a thing called the Dragon Scale, which ups your defense, and you can equip both of them as items, so that's pretty cool. But they're the only 2 items that you can equip in the entire game to do anything, so that's pretty cool though. That's like what you get in that optional dungeon outside of the Iron Shield. So, and that's a pretty like medium level dungeon that you can kind of go into early, but yeah. And then if you keep following that around, that's when you get to like the abandoned town and like the really late game stuff. So you can go that direction. It's just you're gonna get your ass kicked pretty good. So the idea is that you go east and then you go down through the marsh there, which takes your health away. And then you go through that cave and get to the town with the keys. And then once you get the keys, the world is your oyster. You can go pretty much anywhere through any of the doors that have been locked off to you. And it's almost Metroid-esque, to where then you kind of realize, hey, I can go to all these areas, before, or, just like, it's like you get, like Zelda, the Zelda games where you get a new item and you can like, oh, hey, cool, I can go to this new area now or whatever. So it's kind of like that. But the keys just kind of unlock the whole rest of the world for you. And so then you can start getting all of the items and putting them together. And really, the only objective you have in the game is to put together that raindrop and get over that bridge and then go defeat the Dragon Lord. You don't even have to... In that marsh cave that connects those, there's a dragon enemy that's like a really strong version of the other dragon enemies that are just kind of in the game elsewhere. You can like run into them in the overworld, and you can run into them in the final dungeon, and like, yeah, I think maybe in one of the other dungeons or something you can run into these. But there's a stronger version of that guarding the princess. So, you know, when you're like level 12 or something, you can go over there and take him down, get the princess. And the only thing that really does for you is you'll get her in the ending, and that's a better ending or whatever. But also you get this thing from her called it's basically called her love or whatever, so it'll essentially do what the king does, tell you your experience and stuff. Oh yeah, and by the way, the only way you can save is at the king, and every time you die, half your gold gets taken, and you go back to the very beginning castle with the king. But it's not as bad as, say, like a Zelda 2 or something, because traveling and traversing throughout the world is really fairly simple, because the world is small, yet it's big at the same. It's big yet small at the same time. There's like, it's pretty easy to get to wherever you're going, but there's enough there to keep the world feeling big. So it's the perfect size, and it's the perfect density of content and whatnot. It's a perfect way to do an open world, or at least a very good interpretation of an open world this early on in the life of video games, you know? So, yeah. This is like eternal, isn't it? Okay. It's only 4 minutes. These are all like 5-minute tracks. This is just throwing me off. Anyway. So, yeah. But, the only thing, and then it'll tell you how far away you are from the castle, and there's like one NPC somewhere that tells you like, hey, Lodo Seal is specifically this far away from the castle, this many steps north and west or something. And then it's like in this marsh or whatever, like this huge version of that. I remember my friend Mayab, the first time he played it, he's like, I just went through there and I eventually found it. I didn't even need the thing. I just clicked on every space or something like that. And I was like, you dumbass, that's not how you're supposed to do it. But, or he just got like really lucky the first time like finding it. It's not that hard. It's actually like where the path squeezes down to like one square. If you just keep following that along, and it's like a few spaces over from that. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, but I like how that is, and the NPCs give you good hints and whatnot. So that's cool. The battle stuff is pretty simple. You have a few spells, like you have a sleep spell that can put your enemies to sleep. You have 2 fireball spells, one that you don't get till like it's like one of the last spells you learn. The first one you learn like pretty early on. It's like one of your first spells. Heal is one of your first spells, which is nice. And since you're your only party member, you only have to worry about yourself, which is nice. But also kind of sucks too, because then if you die, you just die, and then you go back, or whatever. Oh, my point about the king was that you can only save at the king, though, so that's a staple that they would use for a few Dragon Quest games. But, it all starts here, and there's only one king in this game to save. But they also do, in this version, have a field save, so if you just want to save while you're out on the overworld, or whatever, you can do that. So that's cool. I don't know if you can save in dungeons and stuff. I don't really remember. I didn't use it. I just went straight through the game, like I said, 6.5 hours. Just sat here and played the thing. I saved a bunch of times at the king, just in case like I bumped my GameCube, because I did that initially, like very early on, right when I got into the castle. Like I hadn't even left the castle yet, and it like screwed up. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like take this out, blow on it, put it back in, and just hope for the best, you know, and save every now and again. It didn't end up mattering much, though. So, well, yeah. basically that's it. And you have a better heal spell too, and then there's like a spell that can stop enemies from casting spells or whatever, which I don't really know where you're supposed to use that. I mean, I guess enemies sometimes cast spells. I guess to stop them from putting you to sleep, because that always sucks whenever they put you to sleep or whatever. But yeah. So combat's pretty simple. All you do is attack, defend. I never defended once. Actually, that might have been part of my problem now that I'm thinking about it. Dying to some of those stronger enemies is I never bothered to defend. Because if I was going to defend, if I was like low on health or something, I was just going to heal instead. There's no really point in defending if there's not another party member there to heal you or something. But I know that defending serves a lot of purpose in the game if you're like doing a more hardcore run or whatnot. So it is an important function. It's just I don't really use it that much because I'm dumb and just want to get through the game, I guess, or whatever. So yeah. And there's not too terribly many bosses. Like most of them are optional, like that dragon boss. There's never a boss like in front of or in any dungeon or whatever. They sort of do that more in the later Dragon Quest games, like 3. I don't even know if 2 has that many bosses now I'm thinking about it. I can't remember. I can't think of that many bosses from Dragon Quest 2, but maybe there were some, other than like the final boss and stuff. That'll be interesting to see when we get there. I remember Dragon Quest 3 definitely had a lot of bosses and whatnot, so I think that's kind of where they started doing that, was that game. But yeah, so there's that. The golem is sort of a boss, but I don't think you even have to go and fight that golem to get into that town, because there's literally nothing there that really affects the story as far as I can tell. Before even going to that town, I had already put down the Rainbow Drop Bridge, and I could have gone and fought the Draco Lord. So my point is, I guess, with talking about the princesses and whatnot, you don't have to save her, and that's optional, and that other town is optional. And there's a few, like that one cave I was talking about with the War Ring, that's optional. You don't have to do that either. So there's a lot of optional stuff you can do in the game too, so that's kind of cool. It's like side questing and whatnot. Like, that's pretty innovative. I don't even think Dragon Quest like 2 and 3 have that many like side quests and whatnot. I guess Dragon Quest 3 has like that board game or whatever, but they were more linear experiences, and I think that's really innovative and cool that this first game was kind of open as an experience. I think that was neat. You know, that's a really cool thing. That's still what stands out about that game, and in comparison to the other two games, and why that game is a lot higher on my like favorites list than the other two games. And just because of its simplicity, and it was like kind of the first one and that whatnot. And it's just a fun, comfortable game, even though there is a lot of grinding. The grinding is the fun of the game, leveling up and whatnot. It's an RPG for RPG's sake, you know? It's not about advancing the story or something. It's about playing the game and defeating the Draco Lord and restoring peace to the land. It's a simple premise, and it just works. You know, you do the thing, and you do it right, it works. It just works. So yeah, the gameplay is pretty top-notch, especially in the Game Boy version. It's a little tedious in the, obviously, the NES version, but Game Boy version is a really good one, and in the iOS version. I'm just kind of reviewing the Game Boy version mostly, but it's a great version of the game. Graphically, like I said, it looks really nice. It looks a lot cleaner than the NES version, and they have like little backgrounds and stuff when you go into the battles based on where you are standing. Like if you're on a tree thing, it'll have one background. If you're on the grass part, it'll have one background. If you're like on the mountain part, it'll have a background. If you're in a town, that town, the destroyed town, it'll have a different background. It's cool. On like a marsh space or like the ice looking spaces, like it's all different backgrounds, and that's so cool. Like it adds a lot to instead of just having like the static looking screens that they had in like the NES versions. Which, thinking back, I'm pretty sure that they had some kind of like some sort of backgrounds on the NES, first NES games. I don't know why the later games, I guess because there were more monsters in the later games, so they had to have the black backgrounds with the monsters. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. Point is, I like that graphically, those backgrounds and whatnot, I think was really cool idea. it just adds a lot to the game, you know. All of the enemies are awesome, you know, they're very iconic. Most of them show up in the later games and stuff too, especially the slimes. The skeleton design I love. I always think he's really cool. The dragon designs, like I said, are awesome. The music is the stuff of fucking legend. I think it's about to end here. But some of the greatest video game music, and just the fact that it started off like this was just epic, you know. And then the Dragon Quest theme was just so iconic. The first time I heard that, I'm like, this is fucking epic, you know. So yeah, I love all of the music, and especially the symphonic versions are just super iconic to me. Oh god, the music in this game is so fucking good. Now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, so the theme that plays inside the castle, the overworld theme is just like one of my favorites. It's called Unknown World. Such a great piece. The battle theme is fucking iconic. Just everything. The Draco Lord, when you're fighting him theme, so the final boss theme, the inside of his castle theme, the dungeon theme, all of it is like, it's like Zelda, you know, Zelda music, where like all of it is super iconic and super recognizable. To me anyway, it's really crazy good. It's gotta make an appearance in every video. Yeah, and it just kind of started, much like everything else in the game, it started a legacy of brilliant music. And the other thing is the Akira Toriyama character designs of this game and all of the other games are brilliant. They look super good. I love the art style. That's why I have this like whole art book and whatever. Like, it's just fantastic. Like, let's see if we can find like some Dragon Quest 1 art in here, because it's so excellent. And I just fucking love. Oh my god, look at that. That's so brilliant. I love this. This is fucking iconic right there. That is brilliant. I love that so much. Yeah, you have like, oh, the Spookies and the Drakies, of course. Those are fucking iconic. I love the design of the Dragon Lord, too, the Draco Lord. He's really cool. Of course, we have like the Golem character, and the Magician character down there is pretty cool too. I also like that Eider character. He's awesome. So a lot of those enemies are super iconic to me. And then we're getting into Dragon Warrior 2 there, so I'll just close the book literally on that. We'll table that for a different time. But I love the art design and like the box art. Like, I know this is Dragon Warrior 2 box art there, but it's super cool, super iconic. So yeah, I love this box too. I love that. I still have my original box from back in the day. That's really special to me. There. So yeah, just, oh my god, the game is really good. The Game Boy version, I think, still holds up super well. I know that it's mostly grinding, and I know that's a turnoff to some people, but I feel like there's a really... It's a lot like Dragon Warrior Monsters Joker, or Dragon Quest Monsters Joker, where the grinding is necessitated for a purpose. And you gotta realize this, like, was the... You have to put yourself in the mindset this was like the first RPG that like started all of these conventions, and that's how RPGs were back then. Was there was a lot of grinding, and it didn't necessarily push you to the next like big story bit or whatever. This was a game for the sake of playing the game, and the fact that it's such a comfortable and short RPG, and it's one of the most iconic RPGs, it's just so perfect. It's such it's a satisfying like small bite-sized quest that you can go on and you can complete probably within a day, if you really know what you're doing, or if you have maps and like a walkthrough or something, or it'll take you, you know, maybe a few weeks or a week or something to beat. It's just a really comfortable, good, dense, well-paced and put together RPG. I like that it's not that long. And that's what I like about a lot of the the early Dragon Quest games. The later Dragon Quest games get lots longer, obviously. So, and especially like 8 and whatever get like really, really long, obviously. I like not like 8's like pretty long, but like 7 is definitely obviously the longest one, like 200 hours or whatever. Hopefully they fix that in the 3DS version there. I think would be good. So, yeah. I think... I mean, I hope I kind of went over everything. I think that's pretty much it. It's just a really solid first game, and it builds the legacy for every RPG to come, and not only that, but the Dragon Warrior and Quest series to come, which is awesome. It's just such... I think it's a really fun game, despite the fact that there's just a lot of grinding. It has a lot of redeeming qualities to build around that grinding, like the mystery of the world, the open design of the world, figuring out what you're supposed to do, and all of that stuff. I think is just really well done, and I think it's a well-designed game. I think it's a lot of fun to play. I think the music's great. Graphically, it looks really nice, and the art style shines through. I think you should play it if you're interested in RPGs in general, or even just the history of RPGs. This is the history of RPGs, right here, man. This is like the original turn-based RPG. So I think it's very iconic and important for that. This is maybe one of the most influential games out there in terms of that kind of thing. So, yeah, landmark title, and I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 because it's one of my favorite games and one of my favorite Dragon Quest games. Even with all of the better ones, I think it's like 8, 5, 1 for me, and then like all of the other ones. Like seriously, like that's how much I like this game. I guess 11 would be up in the top tier there. So it's probably like 8, 11, or 8, 5, 11, 1. Maybe 11 would even be below 1. I don't know. You saw the list. You remember where they're all placed. But anyway, so yeah, really iconic game. 10 out of 10 game for me. Revolutionized an industry. Final Fantasy, you owe your life to this. So that's all I gotta say about it. I probably could have said so much more about it, and there's so many great videos out there about it, but it's such a fucking fantastic game. You should definitely play it. This has been JZNES saying keep it classic, stick around for more reviews, underrated games, and I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ